Skip it up and that up. So it is official. Round of applause, please. I am officially popping my PC hardware review cherry here. I mean, I've done some PC overviews in the past. You see me, talk about the Kingston HyperX hard drive and RAM, but I haven't actually done a full review like I'm about to do right now. And what I'm going to be reviewing today is the Sapphire Radeon VaporX R9 270X 2GB GDDR5 graphics card. Rolls right off the tongue, nice and smooth. Sapphire got in contact with me and they were interested in having me review one of their newest graphics cards, and this was one of them. And I was kind of, I'm neither here nor there about it, because my last true experience with AMD graphics cards was with I think I had the 5770, which was a horrid experience, and then I had the 5830, which that card was okay. When I went over to Windows 7, it kind of started having some stability issues because it was driver issues, so I kind of backed away for a while. What got me back into AMD cards actually is when I built a couple budget builds that I sold to people, and I bought 6770s to put in them, and both of them performed amazing. They were like $70 cards, and I was playing games at high to very high settings and getting well above 30 frames per second on brand new titles too. I mean, it's only going back a year, and just released titles were being played at high and very high and running well. So it kind of brought back my faith into AMD. So, like I said, I had some bad experiences, I had some great experiences, so I was on the fence about AMD graphics cards. So when I got this, I put it in my machine. I've had this for about 2 weeks, and for the past, I would say 4 or 5 days, I haven't overclocked it. I'm not an overclocker, but I've beaten the hell out of this card. Didn't abuse it, but I'm just saying, I put it through its paces, ran a bunch of benchmarks and all that, and now I'm going to let you know how I feel about it. So let's begin, and I'll tell you about what computer I put this in and what my setup is, and then we'll go into benchmark numbers, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about the specs of the video card first. It has 2 gigabytes of 256-bit GDDR5 RAM. It has 1280 stream processors. It has a DVI and DVI-D port on there, so you could actually plug in a legacy VGA monitor if you want to, which at this day and age you shouldn't be doing that. It also has HDMI, and it has display ports, so you have the whole gamut of different video I/O on the card, so you can hook up whatever kind of display or monitor that you want to. The GPU has a core clock of 1050 megahertz, and it has a boost clock of 1100 megahertz. The memory on the card runs at 5800 megahertz, and there is 2 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM on the card. So what rig did I put this bad boy in? Well, I went all AMD for my secondary rig. I built a secondary computer, and here are all the parts, and I'll have them listed below in the description as well, so if you want to copy and paste and look on Amazon, Newegg, Tiger Direct, NCIX, so on and so forth, you can. I got the Fractal Design R4 Black Pearl case. My power supply is a Thermaltake Smart Series 750 watt power supply. The CPU, which I am very happy with this processor right now, is the AMD FX 8350, 4 gigahertz, and it actually turbo clocks to 4.2 gigahertz. Again, stock. I don't do any overclocking. I like to everything plain Jane. That's my philosophy. I know that's sacrilegious to a lot of guys who were into PC gaming and building PCs. My secondary hard drive is a Seagate hybrid hard drive, which is part SSD, part mechanical drive. It's 2 terabytes. The main hard drive is a Kingston HyperX 240 gigabyte SSD. The motherboard is a Gigabyte GA97A-UD3P AM3 Plus motherboard. That fits all the FX chips on there from AMD. I am in love with that motherboard. I have 16 gigabytes of Kingston HyperX Beast 1866 megahertz memory. That memory is awesome. And of course, the star of the show is the GPU that I'm reviewing today, which is the Sapphire Radeon VaporX R9 270X. Alright kids, I'm going to shut up and get into some benchmarks now. And the first one I'm going to do is the 3D Mark Fire Strike standard benchmark, not the extreme. I ran that too. This is the standard benchmark, and it got a graphics score of 6163. This ran fairly well. It did get choppy in some spots, but I was pleasantly surprised how good it ran. And this is a gorgeous looking benchmark, and it's very demanding, even with the standard non-extreme Fire Strike benchmark. So it performed pretty well. It's a pretty decent score. Now let's talk about Fire Strike Extreme. This is a very punishing benchmark. And yeah, the video card expectedly struggled. You know, a 270X by AMD is an entry-level to mid-range card, and you shouldn't be expecting it to, you know, perform gracefully with a Fire Strike Extreme benchmark. Hell, there's 780s and cards like that out there that suffer with that benchmark, and it got a graphics score of 2897, and I'm sure you're looking at the footage right now, and you can see it's choppy, but that's to be expected. Like I said, this is a very demanding benchmark, and 3D Mark tells you this is for, like, top-of-the-line gaming PCs, but it held it down. I mean, it's not a terrible score, but once again, you can't expect it to ace this kind of benchmark because this is an entry-level to mid-range card, and this is an extremely demanding benchmark. Moving on. And now the good old tried and true Heaven benchmark. These are the settings I had the benchmark set at. I had quality set to ultra, tessellation was set to normal, anti-aliasing was turned off, and the resolution was 1920 by 1080. And the R9 270X fared pretty damn well with this benchmark. The scores this GPU received was a average FPS of 43.8, a total score of 1104. The minimum FPS was 18.5, and the maximum FPS was 88.4. Now, a lot of you were saying, hey, Rich, you had anti-aliasing turned off. You didn't have tessellation set to extreme. Well, I'm going to be real with you. I mean, this is a good card, but the reality of it is, if you're looking to have all of your settings and all of your benchmarks maxed out, and you want to have anti-aliasing, through the roof, and you want to have tessellation on and still be able to get 60 frames per second, you're going to have to spend a lot more money than this card is. As of now, it's around $219 US. But if you're looking for a card that you're going to be able to do 1080p gaming, have most of your settings on high and max, but you may have to turn off anti-aliasing or, maybe notch down a couple settings, this is where this card shines. It's a good 1080p performer where you could get high max settings. Maybe once in a while with a really demanding game, you'll have to go down to medium. But again, you can't have tessellation all the way up, and you can't have anti-aliasing all the way up and expect to get, 44 frames per second in the Unigine Heaven benchmark. So if that's what you're looking for, this isn't the card for you. I just want to put that out there. So how this graphics card handled the Metro Last Light benchmark, I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, the settings weren't totally maxed out, but they were pretty damn close, and the scores that this benchmark came back with were pretty damn respectable. The resolution obviously was set at 1920 by 1080. The quality was very high. And isotropic filtering was set to 4x. Motion blur was on normal. And tessellation was on normal. Obviously, because this is an AMD card, physics was turned off. And what scores do we come back with? I actually ran the Metro Last Light benchmark multiple times, and the average frame rate was 43 frames per second. The max frame rate was 79.92 frames per second, almost 80 frames per second. And the minimum frame rate, which I think is wrong, there may have been something that ran in the background for a second, was 7.44. So this game was almost completely maxed out with the AMD R9 270X, and I got an average frame rate of 43 frames per second. That is damn good, because anyone out there who has played this game on PC, like I said, knows this game is really damn demanding. So that is awesome. I was very impressed to see that. And last but not least, at least for graphics benchmarks, is Tomb Raider for the PC. The preset this was on the Ultra preset that includes tress effects for the hair, which I'm sure you're seeing now. And this game also did very well on the AMD R9 270X from Sapphire. Now, this isn't the most uber-intensive benchmark on the planet, But TressFX alone does ask a lot from graphics cards, and I was impressed to see the Sapphire 270X perform as well as it did. Here are the stats from this benchmark. The minimum FPS was 35.8, the maximum FPS was 58.4, and the average, once again, this is on ultra settings, the average is 47.8 frames per second. That's really damn good for a card that you should be able to get, even though we'll talk about pricing in a second. You should be able to get anywhere from like $199 to $230 US. So ultra specs, average frame rate of close to 50 frames per second. That to me is pretty damn impressive, especially for a GPU in this price range. So final verdict time, folks. What do I think of the Sapphire AMD R9 270X? I was pleasantly surprised with this graphics card. The performance that I got out of it for the price range that it should be in, we'll talk about that in a second, is amazing. It handled all of the newest games. The frame rates were top notch. Nothing ever went below 30 frames per second. I don't even think the Heaven benchmark, no, it didn't. It didn't go at the settings I had it at. Obviously, if I had the Heaven benchmark maxed out, it would. But even the Heaven benchmark, which it was still on pretty high settings, didn't go below 30 frames per second. And for a card that goes for anywhere from $199 to $229, you can't complain about that. That's pretty damn good, okay? Now, there's two things, all right? One, like I said earlier on in this video, do not expect this to compete with like a GTX 780 or an R9 290 from AMD. You're not spending that much money. If you're looking for that kind of performance, you're not going to get this out of this card, and I'm not going to pretend that you are. You know, I'm not going to make it like this thing will make your breakfast, you know, wash your clothes, and then play the newest games out there at 4K resolutions. It's not meant to do that, but for what it was designed to do, and for the price range that it's supposed to be in, it's one of the best cards out there. Hands down, this card is super quiet too. I didn't mention that before. Even when it's maxed out and you're running heavy duty benchmarks or you're just doing heavy duty gaming, it's whisper quiet, and it runs the hottest I ever got this card after running Furmark for hours, after doing benchmarks, after doing tons of gaming on it. 68 degrees Celsius is the hottest I could get this card to be. So it's a damn good card, and it runs cool and it runs quiet, and for the money, you're getting a lot for the dollar. Now, speaking of money though, okay, I'm going to have a link in the description to Amazon where you can pick up this card. There's something going on. I don't know anything about it. I'm not into Bitcoin, but there's something I guess called Bitcoin mining that these AMD cards could help with. Now that because this is like becoming the internet gold rush, people are buying up all these AMD cards, and what's happening is not Amazon, not Sapphire, not Newegg, not NCIX, so on and so forth. They're not inflating the prices, but the prices are going up. And what's happening is they're like NCIX or Newegg or Amazon or Tiger Direct are running out of the cards, and these shady like third party vendors are like, oh, we have the card, but we have it for $299. Or like I saw the card, I forgot where. It was like $300 and something for this card, which as much as I really like this card, it is not worth that much. So be careful because of the demand due to this Bitcoin mining bullshit. Excuse my language. The prices of the cards, for some reason with the AMD cards, they're going through the roof. Like when the R9 290 came out, now granted it was during Black Friday, it was going for like $400, and all of a sudden the cards sold out everywhere, and then there was these third-party vendors selling the R9 290 for like $530, like $130. The card went up in price, and this is happening with the 270X from Sapphire too. So I would say the most you should spend on this card, where it's still a good value, is $230. Anything beyond that, you're getting gouged, so be careful. I'll have a link to Amazon below. You can click it, check it out. It's out of stock right now. And don't buy it from one of these guys. They're like, oh, Amazon recommends this third-party vendor. Stay away. They want to charge you way too much money for it. Do not spend a penny over 230 US dollars, please. It's not worth it. Great card, but it's not worth that much. So alright guys, hope you enjoyed this in-depth review of the Sapphire AMD R9 270X. Make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for supporting my channel. Have a good one.